This is The Cut, American Whiskey, Daily. Her staff couldn't outguess a $15 gap. Tonight, a Louisville bar runs its 6th annual blind wheated bourbon showdown. Maker's Mark, Larceny, and Weller Special Reserve, labels hidden. And a staff trial run last week nearly split the room. I'm John from Chasing the Unicorn podcast. Here's what moved today, July 17th, 2026. Today's big move is happening live, tonight, in Louisville. Sarah Beth Hoagland has run blind tastings at her 3 bars for 6 years, but this is the lineup her own staff can't stop arguing about. The Rickhouse Room pours Maker's Mark, Larceny, and Weller Special Reserve blind tonight. Labels stay hidden until the very last pour. She's run this format quarterly since 2020, and she says a staff trial last week produced something new, a near-even split between Larceny and Weller. That's a surprise because Weller carries the bigger reputation and the bigger secondary premium. All 3 bottles share a wheated mash bill and sit within about $15 of each other at retail. That's the whole design. Strip away the name, strip away the price anxiety, see what's actually in the glass. This isn't one night's opinion either. Hoagland's compiled roughly 24 of these events since 2020, something close to 1,000 scored pours feeding one running database. That's a real sample questioning whether secondary reputation and blind preference are actually the same thing. Nothing on your shelf changes tonight, but the test does. 3 bottles, about $75 total, poured blind for a friend this weekend. Now, today's flight. Because the same question, does the price tag match what's in the glass, is playing out in a second comparison this week, and it comes with real numbers behind it. Fred Minnick just ran Buffalo Trace against Eagle Rare 10-year through a blind panel of 5 tasters, but he scored it differently than usual, nose, palate, and finish, graded separately instead of one combined number. Both bourbons come off the same Buffalo Trace line, same wheated-leaning mash bill. The only real variable is 6 extra years in the barrel and about $10 to $15 extra at the register. The panel came back almost tied on nose, almost tied on palate. The gap showed up in one place, finish. Eagle Rare pulled ahead there by a wide margin. Minnick's read, the age statement is buying you a longer goodbye, not a different bourbon. That's a useful way to shop. If you drink slow and you chase a long finish, pay the premium. If you're pouring it into a cocktail or drinking it fast on a weeknight, save the $10. You're not getting a meaningfully different bourbon for it, just a shorter one. It's the same question the Rickhouse Room is asking tonight with wheated bourbons under $15 apart. How much of what you're paying for is actually in the glass, and how much is the name on the label? Run both tests yourself before your next bottle. It's the cheapest real research in bourbon. Now, today's first sip. Because both of tonight's comparisons hinge on the same thing, the mash bill. So here's what it is. The mash bill is the grain recipe behind a bourbon, corn, rye, or wheat, and a little malted barley, and it's the single biggest factor in how a bourbon tastes. Bigger than age, bigger than proof. Traditional bourbons like Buffalo Trace and Eagle Rare run around 70% corn and 18 to 20% rye, balanced, all-purpose. High rye bourbons push that rye up past 25%, trading balance for black pepper and a sharper finish. Wild Turkey lives here. Wheated bourbons drop rye entirely and swap in wheat. Softer, more bread and caramel, less spice. Maker's Mark, Larceny, and Weller all live in that family, which is exactly why tonight's Louisville showdown works. Same family, different execution. What this changes. Once you know the mash bill, you can predict roughly what a bottle will taste like before you ever pour it. If you're logging pours in the Perfect Pour app, tonight's a good one to track. A wheated lineup shapes your pour print differently than a high rye night would, and it's available now at theperfectpourapp.com. One to grab this week, while we're on the subject. Larceny Barrel Proof, Batch B926, just restocked nationally at retail, $69.99. No allocation, no lottery, just find a store that has it. It's the direct subject of a running community comparison against last year's A926, and the difference shows up fast. Caramel apple and toasted almond, with a slightly hotter finish than the prior batch from a modest proof bump. It's also the wheated bottle sitting quietly next to tonight's blind lineup, one price tier down from Weller. Grab it this weekend, run it against Weller Special Reserve yourself, and see if your palate lands where Hoagland's staff did, split right down the middle. So here's the one thing to take from all of this. 6 years of blind data in one bar and a 5-taster panel comparing 2 bottles off the same still are both saying the same quiet thing. Price and reputation don't move in lockstep with what's actually in the glass. That gap is where the good, cheap bottle lives. Go find it yourself before you trust the label again. That's The Cut. The full American whiskey industry brief is waiting at patreon.com/chasingtheunicorn podcast. I'm John Schuster. Thanks for joining me. Your unicorn is out there.